Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're checking out the DF64V Gen 2 coffee grinder. This is a serious contender in the flat burr grinder space, now packing some fresh new updates. And whether you're upgrading from an older, more modest grinder or eyeing this off for the first time, this grinder promises versatility and precision, especially with the new RPM range from 900 to 1800 RPM. And spoiler alert, we are going to push that RPM to its max today to see if the higher speeds really make a difference in the grind and the cup quality. So stick around. Let's kick things off with what's new on this grinder. And this version has some nice upgrades that address feedback from the original. Let's break them down quickly. First up, the anti-static plasma generator has been upgraded. This helps reduce static issues, which means less grind retention and fewer clumps in the grinds cup. Now, in simple terms, static builds up when beans are ground, and it makes those fine particles that cling to the grinder chute and the dosing cup. Now, the plasma generator works by releasing tiny charged particles that neutralize this static within the grounds. So the coffee grounds come out of the chute more smoothly without sticking everywhere. And then this reduces the amount of retention within the grinder and also the amount of grounds that you have to clean up. Next is the single piece removable chute. Now, this was previously two pieces and a little bit fiddly. This further improves retention as it makes it super easy to clean. It's held into place with magnets, so you're just popping it on and off. You can clean that chute quite quickly, and the burrs are directly behind there, so you have full access to the system to clear out any leftover grounds that may be in there. Then there is, of course, the RPM adjustment. And this is the biggest talking point. The ability to change the grind speed from, I said 900, but it's actually 800 RPM to 1800 RPM. And this is a huge win for anyone who likes to fine-tune their grind. Let's talk about RPM, because that's what really sets the DF64V apart from fixed speed grinders, other than the quality build as well. But in one aspect, changing the RPM can add unnecessary complexity to your brewing. However, if you are someone who enjoys the flexibility of adjusting the RPM, this grinder can be changed from 800 to 1800 RPM. Now, in my experience, 1100 RPM is usually that sweet spot for flat burr grinders, where it gives you that balance of grind consistency without creating too much heat. But today we are going to push the RPM to 1800 to see how that higher speed impacts the grinding profile. Will the faster speed create more fines? Will it extract quicker or lead to bitterness? Or will it just maintain the flat burr clarity that we all love? I'm excited to find out. But before we do, let's quickly talk about the rest of this grinder. Now, the DF64V Gen 2 comes with its standard 64mm DLC diamond-like coating flat burrs. These burrs are incredibly sharp and durable, which is perfect for anybody who's wanting to purchase the grinder with great burrs to begin with. They provide consistent grinds, whether it's for espresso or filter. Plus, you can also swap these out with other 64mm burrs if you do want to experiment with different grind profiles. So there is a lot of flexibility here. Now, the grind adjustment on this machine is pretty straightforward. You'll adjust it by rotating the hopper chute. There is an indicator that is static, and you use this as your 0 pointer. But once this is set, it's really easy to fine-tune your grind setting as needed. The DF64V Gen 2 has a 30-gram capacity to it, making it a single dosing grinder where you only grind out what you need for each brew. And it also features an integrated popcorn screen as well as a bellows system, which helps with convenience, retention, and cleaning during grinding. Additionally, the grinder includes an independent grind cup that sits separately on a wooden riser, ensuring clean and direct transfer of coffee grounds into the grinds cup. And this setup, I believe, enhances both convenience and cleanliness during use. And this is great for those of you who value precision and minimal waste in your coffee preparation. All right, so let's see how it grinds. So I have 20 grams in each of these. It's an espresso roast. I'm going to grind these out shortly on an 1100 and an 1800. We're going to see how quiet, how fast the grinder is. And then I'm also going to check the retention on each. And also, I need to mention that whenever you're grinding with this grinder, a couple of things to make note of is when you're adjusting the grinder, you want to have the grinder on. There's a little bit of bean in there. You want to have the grinder on when you're adjusting the grind. You do not want to be turning the grinder just in case there is some beans left over between the burrs. And if you're trying to adjust the grind size closer together, finer, and there's beans in there, you're not going to. You're going to feel like it's jammed or stuck. Just turning the grinder on, it might throw whatever's out between the burrs, and then you're going to be adjust finer again. It's best to just get into the habit of turning the grinder on when you're adjusting the grind. That would be the best way to put it. Let's just zero this one off first. The DF64V Gen 2 also comes with an RDT bottle. I just RDT every time now. I just get into the habit of it. I don't know why. I just love it. That's pretty good. It's quick, quiet, 1100. This grind's just still slowly coming out. If I give it a tap on the bellows, and you can also do this with the grind chute, but you don't want to do it too hard. You kind of want to keep one finger on it and tap it on the side like that. And that kind of knocks it out as well. There we go. It's kind of like a little knocker. If you do it too hard, it'll just fall off. It was 0 and it's still 0. So this, 0. Let's go. Hot start. I always like to do a hot start as well. So that means turning the grinder on and then adding your beans. That's so much louder, faster. Oh, I can hear those burrs humming. Yeah, that was a big difference in the RPM. Look, and there's still some half of grind in there. There we go. All right. See what we get with this. 0.1 of a gram. Sweet. 0.1 of a gram in each dose. I think that's fairly acceptable. Big difference in RPM change at 1800. That thing flew. Now I'm going to brew some espressos and we'll come back and we'll taste them. Well, that didn't take long at all. In fact, the 1800 RPM, that just ground out so fast. I will say, just by sight alone, the grinds looked like they were coming out finer. I don't think they were specifically because it was the same grind size, different grind speeds, but it just looked finer. And that did kind of translate to when I was brewing them. Now, I adjusted them to be on the same grind size, so I didn't dial in each RPM method. I dialed in at 1500 RPM and kind of split either way. But the 1800 just brew a little longer than the 1100 RPM. So that was an interesting effect on how the RPM changed. But when I say it ground finer, like it just looked like it, but it also translated to how it brewed. So maybe there is something there in terms of it creates more fines. Anyway, I have 2 espressos here. I'm gonna blind taste them now and just tell you what I'm tasting. Just quickly, what are the notes on these beans? It's blood orange, ripe cherry, dark chocolate. Blood orange, ripe cherry, dark chocolate. It sounds amazing. Nice and just clean, straight up clean and sweet. There's a balance of acidity and sweetness. Not as much texture, like it's a little light on the texture, but everything else, there's still some body. Now I'm getting like there's lingering on the palate still as well, but there's some heaviness, but there's no texture. And every time I take a big sip in the middle of the palate, I'm just getting all this bright sweetness and acidity that's really well balanced, like biting into a crisp apple where all the juices just flow out. That's really nice. Not as much dark chocolate. It's not as dry or rich. It's a little bit more thin and watery, but it's quite enjoyable. It's very enjoyable, rather. Ooh, there's some depth to this. So I would say that the sweetness and the acidity, there's a little bit more complexity to this. This had a lot of clarity between the sweetness and the acidity, and then it kind of lingered, and then it kind of finished, and then the body came, and then there was a lingering that stayed. So there was stages with this cup. Whereas this, everything's like up front, everything's in one sip. There's the sweetness, there's the acidity, the body's holding it all up there, right behind it. It goes straight into the body, good amount of texture. Actually, really nice amount of texture in this. And that's all lingering still. There's actually, well, that was a really nice hint of sweetness right at the back, which is great. Where it's like lingering sweetness. Like it would be fairly easy for me to guess that the one that is bright, light, and sweet is the 1100, and the one that is heavy, complex, robust, and rich would be the 1800. This would be the 1100, and this would be the 1800. Now, if this is the 1800, it has a blue sticker on it. Yeah, blue sticker. And this would be the 1100, no sticker. Both equally delicious. Now, I'm a black coffee drinker. That's actually, I don't drink milk coffee. That's what I'm trying to say. So like the 1100, right down my alley. Slowly increasing it maybe to try and get some texture out of it. Slowly increasing it maybe to get some body, some more lingering aftertaste in there. But this is fantastic. This is equally great. This is absolutely delicious. It's actually like, now that I'm thinking about it, it's like biting into the cherries. But I think when we're talking milk coffee, so my previous video, this would be the cup I'd want to add my milk to, because this would just make those cherries, those dark, rich notes shine through, whereas I think you would lose a lot of the unique characteristics of the coffee at the 1100 RPM. And that's what I'm talking about when it comes to how flexible the RPM adjustment is to a grinder. On the one hand, you can make a fantastic black coffee at 1100 RPM, and then with the same coffee at 1800 RPM, you're gonna blow the mind of someone who loves a milk coffee. Now, if it was just a static RPM, you're kind of then adjusting with the grind size, and then you're adjusting with the brew time. And whilst the RPM does kind of change all that anyway, it almost seems like it's an easier parameter to adjust once you've dialed in. But I do kind of, like, this is where the complexity comes in, right? Like, I do kind of suggest stick with an RPM, then dial in, taste, and then you can play with one parameter at a time. Play with the RPM, obviously. Like, just adjust the RPM, make sure it's I would say make sure it's a big enough change too. Like, don't go from 11 to 1200 expecting a big change. Something like the 11 to the 1800, yeah, these are massive differences, even when there was only a 2-second brew time. That was interesting. Now, one of the best features of this grinder is how easy it is to clean. You have that single piece chute, which is magnetic. You just pull it off and you're good to go, cleaning the chute and directly at the bottom of those burrs. You also have the bellows to knock out any remaining grounds. Then removing the burrs for a deeper clean is pretty painless too. So the whole thing is designed with maintenance in mind. Of course, no grinder is perfect though. So let's cover off a couple of the potential downsides. This grinder doesn't come with a portafilter rest, so your only option really is to grind into the dosing cup and then transfer into a portafilter. Not a deal breaker, but it is something worth considering. But overall, the DF64V Gen 2 is a solid upgrade from its predecessor, with a lot of flexibility thanks to its adjustable RPM range and its user-friendly design that's easy to maintain. So if you are someone who likes to experiment with different grind settings and dial in that perfect extraction, this grinder gives you a lot of room to play with. Yet, if you're more about convenience and consistency, then you'll still find plenty to love here, especially if you stick around that 1100 RPM range. But if you are, again, that's someone who wants to push the limits, go ahead and crank it up to 1800 RPM. You might be surprised at what you can do. So thank you so much for watching to the end of this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you have any further questions, drop them in the comment section down below and I'll get straight back to you. And until next time, happy brewing.